Welcome to Odd Musings with, what's the name?
Scott and Brent.
You heard him.
All right.
I'm D. Snyder.
Welcome to Odd Musings, episode 182, Dawn of the Filoni-verse.
That's right. I love it. Rise of the Filoni.
Yes.
It's such a fun last name to say, too.
Filoni. Filoni.
Sounds like a Harry Potter name or spell even. It's like Filoni.
Yes. It's the wizard Filoni doing the Filoni.
Yes. Magically saving Star Wars.
Yes. Single-handedly anymore.
Single-handedly. He is more powerful than Gandalf.
He's got Favreau, but they almost seem to be of one mind.
Oh,
so I think they are the true Sith. Because there's two of them, and there can only be two.
Or they are Obi-Wan and Luke, I was going to say. Luke being the great, powerful future Jedi, but his mentor, Obi-Wan, teaching him the early steps. But Favreau needs to be careful because in every great story, the mentor must leave and usually is killed off tragically so that the hero must walk their path alone. So,
well, geez, we don't want that because they're kind of mentoring each other, and we don't want them both to die. Favreau's mentoring him on how to make live action, and Filoni's mentoring him on Star Wars.
And for everyone who's watching, I'm not wishing this. Simply the typical hero's path in stories.
God, no. After the last several years, we finally are getting Star Wars back on track to where it should be, telling good stories.
Yeah, and it really is. Favreau has made such an impact too. When you look at the Marvel universe, at what he's leaving. Who would have thought? 20 years earlier, when you see him as Phoebe's MMA boyfriend or something on Friends, that he would turn into such a large figure.
I was just watching before I paused it here before I got online with you here. Netflix has the holiday movies that made us.
Oh,
and
nice.
First one popped up was Elf, and the thing I hadn't realized then, because I thought he'd done a couple movies by this point. Elf was only the second time that Favreau had directed a movie. Now he had wrote Swinger, someone else directed it. He wrote and directed Made, which is not one of my favorites of his early stuff that he's done. It was okay. I liked Swingers a lot better, but they actually got him involved, and because one of the guys knew Vince Vaughn, and so they're talking about how they pieced together how they knew each other, how this movie came about. So it's kind of funny to see that 20 years ago. You got Jon Favreau directing Elf, which catapulted him up into more of a stratosphere of directors and everything else, and then started doing stuff from there. While still acting at the point and doing movies, we started directing more and creating more. And next thing you know, he's doing Iron Man. So from Elf to Iron Man pretty quickly in just a few years. And from there, now we have him doing this. So he really has come in the last 20 years to become the preeminent creator, director, artistic vision within fandoms.
And that's just it. I think the key word is within fandoms. Jon Favreau himself, and same with Filoni, they're brilliant at what they do, but what makes them ultra powerful is their understanding of the fans and what the fans want, and giving them the fans what they want. They're not going into these franchises saying, I am going to make this in my own image now. They are looking at what the essence is of what makes that franchise what it is and bringing it to life. And that's why it's not that they're paying fan service. It's that they're staying true to the core of what that product is that the fans fell in love with. And that's a big difference.
Yeah. And that's where something I think I'm seeing, and it's not just in the Star Wars universe. We've seen this in, I think, other fandoms. I see this sometimes in the people that claim to be fans of certain things. They want to change everything about it that everybody loved. And it's like, no, that's not the point. If you want it to be something completely different, create something new.
Yeah.
We got so much to get into, and I don't want to get too far
Definitely.
ahead, but let's knock out our ad reads here because there's some great sponsors. And I'm going to start us off with Loringer Family Chiropractic Center PC. That's the Facebook page right there. And you definitely find them on Facebook. Just do the search for Loringer Family Chiropractic Center, or you can go to their website, LoringerFamilyChiropractic.com. But at Loringer Family Chiropractic Center, your journey to wellness begins there. You can build a healthy lifestyle with chiropractic care. They do take great pride in providing the finest chiropractic care to each and every patient, offering on-site digital x-rays, massage therapy, orthotics by foot levelers, young living essential oils, aromatherapy, full line of vitamins, all in a family-oriented environment. In these days, with all of us trying to be as healthy as we can with all the stuff floating around, then, this is definitely one of the ways you can do that. And I found that it definitely helps me stay healthy by utilizing not just chiropractic care. I use the aromatherapy. I use the CBD they provide, or not provide, but offer there, as well as, just doing every day-to-day thing to stay as healthy as I can. But definitely with Loringer Family Chiropractic, one of our great sponsors, there's a lot of great things they can do for you. So you can give them a call at their Belleville, Michigan location, 734-697-4244. They're also located in Dexter, Michigan. And you can visit them online at LoringerFamilyChiropractic.com, as well as oddmusings.com under our sponsor page. And then we also have
Team Titans of Real Estate. Why? Because you matter. Here we're looking at our Facebook page. You can follow us on Facebook at Team Titans RE. The RE is for real estate. We're entering into the final, or in the final month of the year, I should say. And real estate is still happening. The market, the total number of houses hitting the market is still plummeting as far as new listings go, but the demand is still going up. Our actual number of closings is still increasing. So what does that mean? Low supply, high demand. It's the time to sell. It really is. Things are still moving quickly. Prices are going up. So take advantage of that. If you're looking to sell your house, because people still need to move, even though it's wintertime. We're sitting here at December 2nd. We're only 23 days away from Christmas. Can you believe that?
Hard to believe.
Yeah. But, while everyone's getting into the Christmas spirit and trying to navigate how to have Christmas and, still recovering from all the turkey from Thanksgiving last week and all that. Yeah, life still goes on and people still need to make moves. People are having babies. People are getting married. People are getting divorced. People are having kids move out and they need to downsize. There's all kinds of reasons people still need to move. So if you are even thinking about any kind of changes in your housing situation, even if it's in the next 6 months, 12 months, give us a call because we can at least get you started on the path of how to maximize yourself, how to position yourself to maximize your position when you're ready to make your move. So give us a call, 586-549-6096.
Excellent. I've got my, we're going to be talking about Ahsoka Tano today. Got my Black Series there. She does have the blue lightsabers. Of course, it does say down here Star Wars Clone Wars, so that's where that timing fits in. So this would be towards the end of the Clone Wars before her lightsaber changed. Because I was talking about it before we got an air here. Is I haven't seen much talk about it at all. Was the fact that she had white lightsabers, and we saw that first in Star Wars Rebels.
Yep, and that's because she's not a Jedi.
She's no longer affiliated with the Jedi or the Sith. So the white signifies her neutrality, I guess, between the two factions.
What she actually represents very well, and it's a concept that Disney has abandoned. I don't understand what's going on. The very opening line in, was it the prologue of, it was either in the Aftermath series, but I think it was in the prologue of Star Wars Episode 7. It talks about the path of the Gray Jedi. And the path of Ahsoka was really, she operates as a Gray Jedi instead of a light side, or she's not a dark side user or a light side user. And, but they've never really gone any deeper. And so I'm wondering, will they explore that now that she's in the live action and the white lightsabers is supposed to signify her Gray Jedi status. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's we had heard a lot of talk prior to Rise of Skywalker about Gray Jedis and that Rey would be the first Gray Jedi. No affiliation between the Jedi and the Sith. So realistically, I mean, calling them Gray Jedis is almost a misnomer. It's like not Jedi then at that point. They are just Force wielders. And and that's kind of where even Ahsoka during this episode was talking about the fact that she was not that the Jedi had fallen. She didn't really accept the term Jedi, although she was called Jedi by Morgan Elsbeth. So
Well, and with the Force, and this is where things get a little muddy because you have the old Legend series versus what's canon now versus what they just haven't touched. So you don't know if the Legends is still in place or if they plan on overriding it or walking away from. But the Force itself is very large and has many aspects to it. And even Palpatine refers to it in episode 3 when he's talking to Anakin about there's many sides of the Force. So you have the Jedi, which utilize the light side of the Force. You have the Sith, who utilize a very specific aspect of the Force we refer to as the dark side. But you also have other aspects of the Force, like the Dathomir witches. They appear to have these magic abilities, but they are actually accessing a certain aspect of the Force to use their powers. So there's different ways of accessing the Force, and you get different powers or results based upon how you utilize the Force.
Right. And that's something that even wasn't fully discussed this episode, but Ahsoka did make mention of the fact that the Force, it surrounds us and all living things. She didn't get to the full Qui-Gon aspect, surrounds us, binds us, when he talked about the Force and even Yoda, but she basically touched on that again, which was kind of
no mention of midi-chlorians.
No, but we've had it during the series, with because they're looking for the
but
M
they only
rating,
call it M count or something. So
yeah.
I wonder if they're trying to steer away from the midi-chlorian usage, which personally I would be for, because I think part of not everything has to be 100% explained. I think it's good to allow the Force to be this mystery for people to allow into their lives as far as the story goes and shape to what they want, how they interpret the Force to be. I think it's okay to not have everything explained.
Right. I agree with that. I think you don't need it's like even with like Walking Dead, we don't necessarily need to know how it started or anything else. We just need them to tell good stories, which they haven't done. So I stopped watching. And but it's the same thing with the midi-chlorian thing. It was like, okay, I remember that in episode 1, and they got midi-chlorian count. This is how they track. It's kind of a blood test, and he's got a higher count. Anakin had a higher count than anybody, even Master Yoda, and stuff like that. But now we know now that they're still kind of including that, but they don't have to necessarily get into it too much, calling it M count. And they're using it for how they're trying to extract from the blood of our newly named Baby Yoda, Grogu.
Grogu is right. Hold on a second. We got Grogu here.
Yes.
Let me get him up here. See if I can get him in the shot. But there's Grogu.
Yes. You got to bring him the other way. Bring him closer to you. There he is.
Grogu.
And I don't know if you're friends online with Spat still or not, but
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
You saw he got the sideshow one.
Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous.
And it comes with the little ball that's actually a little magnetic piece. But I think he made another piece that looks like the cookie he was eating the other episode with the magnetic piece.
The macaroon or
macaroon. Yeah.
Macaroons.
So that was kind of funny in that. But yeah, I gotta get me a Baby Yoda eventually. I keep thinking they got that one now that talks.
Baby Yoda here though, he has no feet. He's just they made him to be, but he's like only $20 at Walmart or something. So
I'll say he's just one of the basic ones. I like the one that moves and talks and everything. So
there we go. We got Baby Yoda peeking in the corner here. Baby Grogu.
Baby Grogu, yes.
Which, as we mentioned last week, he started to make sounds that seem to be the starting of words. So, and I know
it again this week.
Yep. So I think we are going to be hearing a first word before the end of this season is my bet.
Yeah. I mean, he said Batu again in this one, and then other little sounds. So
I saw someone post him saying, "I am Grogu." And as he says it, Groot is slapping him saying, "I am Groot."
Yeah, Janice. Hey, Janice, how you doing? She's Sideshow Grogu is on the way.
I'm jealous. That thing is so gorgeous. I wish I could get the Sideshow one.
Yes. Of course, Janice is celebrating. I saw on Facebook her 10th anniversary of being on a giant banner at a convention. Looked like a technology thing she was doing for work at the time. So congratulations to Janice. That was awesome. Yay.
Yeah, good to hear from Janice.
Yes. We haven't seen Janice because we hadn't had any shows other than the Great Lakes show, which unfortunately got canceled for next year. So not sure when we'll see you again, Janice, but hope you and Roy are doing well. And we know she's a big Star Wars fan, considering the fact that Scott was part of the Stormtrooper cavalcade of her wedding.
Yep. It was a great time.
Yeah. Attack of the 30-foot Janzilla. Yes. So Janice, definitely chime in as we're talking about Baby Grogu in this episode, because it's a 45-minute episode, and we got from the get-go, I think what everybody, if you didn't like it, I can't help you, but from what everybody really wanted, we saw Ahsoka in action right away. They didn't hold back, they didn't wait, and we get to see her go right to work.
Can we just take one quick sidestep here? Mm-hmm. And can you share my screen here really quick? Sure we got to give a shout out for David Prowse, who passed away a few days ago.
Yeah, 85 years old. I know Scott and I both at different times have met Mr. Prowse at all these different shows. He was a fixture for the longest time at the conventions. Him and Peter Mayhew, even Kenny Baker, up until before Kenny Baker couldn't travel anymore. They popped up quite a few times at shows. Always pleasant with the fans. Yep. And definitely he was a towering figure. So it was I'd heard he hadn't been doing well, so I mean it wasn't a complete shock, but it always is a shock when you see someone like that. Right? And he played the greatest villain / anti-hero in the universe, and still is to this day. Would you tell me Vader's product sells 10% of all Star Wars?
I was reading, Vader is the #1 selling character for merchandising, and he is it was something like $7.8 billion in merchandising, and Vader is 10% of that take. So
780 million, almost $1 billion himself.
Yeah, if I remember the number right, I don't quote me on the numbers. My brain never seems to work right. But Prowse is amazing. He had all of these figures. Even though you never saw them on screen, their faces, they brought the characters to life, and it takes a certain someone to be a role, like Peter Mayhew, for instance. A lot of people don't know he actually got sick during the filming of Empire Strikes Back, and so they found another person the same height as him to play Chewbacca. Well, afterwards, Peter got better, and then when they reviewed all the footage, they could tell it wasn't Peter in there because the body language was all wrong. And so they actually went back and reshot the scenes with Peter Mayhew so that it was right. His replacement, and I should know his name. It's a Swedish name or whatever. Peter, whatever. I forget his name. Jonas. I don't know how to say it. Anyways, what was nice about that is there was actually a transition period. Peter couldn't do the running scenes or the action scenes anymore, but he did the sitting scenes. So the new Chewie actor got to work side by side with Peter, learning the motions, how he wiggles his head when he talks. And so when we see Chewie, it's still Chewie. In Solo, it was all the body language was right. And it's the same with Vader. David Prowse brought a certain composure to this figure to make him come to life. C-3PO.
The actor you're looking for is Joonas Suotamo.
I can never say it.
Finnish actor. I can't say it. I think it's Joonas Viljami Suotamo. He's a Finnish actor and former professional basketball player. And during Force Awakens, he was side by side with Peter. Peter did all the sit down stuff, and you can kind of tell a little bit of difference because Peter was a little more hunched because of what was going on with him physically. But it's not horrible. But definitely he trained him how to be Chewbacca, because Chewbacca wasn't just a guy in a suit. It was the way Peter acted him and created the character that made Chewie such a lovable character throughout all of Star Wars so far.
And then regarding David Prowse, also his #1 role in his life, I've read for him was, while he loved Vader dearly, it was his work as Green Cross Man in the UK. It was a safety figure, a character for safety public service announcements, telling kids to look both ways before crossing the street. And when he started that role, after he started doing that role, they had this huge decrease in traffic accidents with children. So that was something he always was very happy with, because he felt he saved lives through his campaign. So that was very cool.
And sound like he did, yeah. So rest in peace, David Prowse.
Yep.
Vader will live on, and hopefully he's up there with Peter and Kenny, and they're all just hanging out, and got Carrie making fun of all of them.
That's right. Yeah. They're probably all complaining about how George Lucas could have paid them more.
Yeah. Well, back to Ahsoka though. Janice's Ahsoka in and out of the mist with the Death Stalking was amazing. That was right at the beginning, and like I said, we got to see her just launch right into it. And in fact, here's a picture of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and she really owned the live action version of Ahsoka.
It was great. My biggest concern with Ahsoka wasn't the casting; it was the makeup and the prosthetics and how it would work in live action, and would it look good? Because Ahsoka is a very, it's a very stylized character in the cartoons. And it's like, can you bring it to life? That's the question. And Rosario Dawson's a great actress. And, but if the makeup and the prosthetics didn't work, it was going to be a failure no matter who was cast.
Well, I think having Filoni in charge of this episode was the best way to go about it, since he created the character of Ahsoka anyways. Yeah. And we have an actress that her skin tone led to them adding within the orange. It kind of blended well. It fit her. The makeup was done as close to what you can get in the animated version as possible. And then her
Leiku.
Leiku, yep. They it's been all over like the Twitterverse and all that stuff about how shorter it is than it was in the later years of Rebels and that.
Right.
But to make it live action, there's no way she could have had it down towards her waist and still be functional.
Yeah, for the people I know in the 501st who do the Shakti character who was in the prequels, Shakti is the same species as Ahsoka, and as that species ages, their Leiku get longer and the points on the top get longer, and it becomes very dramatic looking, and it looks amazing. But that's all it is. It's like 10 pounds, the prosthetic. It weighs a ton. It wants to flop everywhere. So, which is why Shakti, even though Shakti was one of the fan favorites as far as the new Jedi in the prequels, you never saw her in action because that it just wasn't, the actor couldn't move. So I'm glad they went with the choice of shortening everything so that we could see her in full-blown live action without having to do crappy CGI or something to try to make it look different.
Yeah, I like the fact that as much as there's a lot of technology going into making the Mandalorian, they still try to use as much practical makeup and effects, along with the ability to add in stuff for the background and sides and stuff like that.
And the more practical it is, the more you can do.
Yes.
You can do nice close-up shots and all. And now, at first, though, with this episode, I don't know if you had any problems or not. The first time I watched it, it was so dark. Like I had to change my TV settings. My normal TV settings, I could barely see anything going on. It was almost like the Game of Thrones episode where everything was black. I'm like, what the heck is this?
Mine wasn't that bad. I was.
Yeah, well,
it must have been your settings of your TV. Yeah.
Well, the normal settings we have it on, that looks fine in everything we watch. For some reason, that episode was coming out very, very black. But once I changed it to the dynamic setting, it looked beautiful. It looked amazing. So I don't know what everything else I normally watch comes out fine.
Could be the way Disney Plus was streaming through your device.
Maybe.
So that I stream mine through an Xbox, and I have it kind of set up because of the gaming and that, because of I like it a little bit brighter because of sometimes some games are a little too dark.
Right.
And I prefer to, so I lightened stuff up a long time ago. So I thought it looked gorgeous.
Yeah, it looked great once I changed the setting.
The mist and everything else, the initial setup with the character she was going after.
Also, this world, I love how they're capturing the old school Star Wars feel. You land on this planet. First of all, the rule in Star Wars is whatever the ecosystem is, the whole planet is that. So like Coruscant is an entire city, the whole planet, or it's a whole water world, or it's a whole forest moon. So in this case, everything was burned down.
Yeah.
It was an entirely torched forest. But I love those giant creatures in the distance that were like these monstrous brontosaurus type creatures that were eating whole trees.
Yeah.
And I thought it just captured that old school Star Wars feel.
Yep. So that and we did get a little insight into that. The reason it was all burned out, everything was because the character of Morgan Elsbeth, she had her family been killed, and she rose up to help basically supply the Empire through the naval shipyards, all the ships they used throughout the Civil War and all that. Don't get a whole lot into her backstory. I was trying to find more. I was a little bit on Wikipedia, but really it's all just from this episode. And but it did mention, Mandalorian mentioned that, Jen mentioned that it looked like she was still doing the same thing, just stripping the worlds of their resources to create what she wanted. And she even said she could care less about anybody on that planet. She was the magistrate of that world, but we don't know exactly what she was doing there other than living there. And she had like her own, it looked like a mini Beijing in terms of like of the Forbidden City. You had the outer wall area, and then she was inside another area, which was all lush and everything else. And it fit a lot of who the actual actress is, because she is, trying to find some information on her here real quick, but she was, trained by Bruce Lee when she was younger. Her father and Bruce Lee worked together in martial arts and movies and that. So she's definitely got that fighting aspect was actually hers. So her training was more probably just, and I think she's done film work before. So
Right.
I'm trying to find, I thought I had a link to her here, but I don't have it handy. So
another thing that came up, so some people were complaining about the length of the Leiku, which honestly, I don't even know if I believe that. I hear stories of people complaining, but I've never actually seen someone complain. So I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if people are just making up controversy that isn't even there. But that was one thing. But the other thing is with Grogu, we find out through Ahsoka what his past is, and we find out he was at the Jedi Temple, and he was trained by multiple masters, and then he was whisked away and hidden, and then his memory becomes dark. So we don't know what's going on there. But some of the things I saw too was people like questioning, like, well, they're just they're retconning everything, because when we saw the classroom with students in episode 2, Grogu wasn't in that scene. Well, it's a giant Jedi temple with they don't just have 5 Padawans in the entire building. They had hundreds of Padawans going on. So those classes he could have easily been in a different class, just he wasn't in the one scene.
Well, that's what it is. They didn't show they killed younglings, Anakin did, but they didn't show him killing every single one.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, that was the difference. I mean, that to me is someone just trying to nitpick too much. I mean, it's like, we're not going to have, like, and if you go back, you can see, him in the background or something like that.
Right.
The one thing I'm seeing is kind of interesting is, we have Yoda, which of course Ahsoka knew Yoda, and then we know about was it Yaddle, right?
Yaddle. Yep.
Now Yaddle, we saw in episode 1, but we didn't see after that.
Correct. And as I saw some people like, wait a minute, she said I only knew one other Yoda. They're like, what about Yaddle? Well, we only know Yaddle was in episode 1 of the movies. Ahsoka didn't come on board till the Clone Wars. She was picked up. It'd be around episode 2 when she was taken on as a Padawan for Anakin. So it would make no sense that when she was like 8 years old, she would know every Jedi master that existed during episode 1, or whatever age she was at the time, 5 or 8 or whatever. So it's not a big deal that she said she only ever knew one.
Well, and to me, it made sense because it was like, okay, because I remember thinking, I was like, okay, we see Yaddle they never even dealt with the character in the movies. I mean, Yaddle was just there with the masters. And so it was like, okay, well, we didn't see her afterwards, so we don't know anything about that. But it does lead a little bit more to our speculation we've had for the last year about this is, did Yoda and Yaddle get together to have Grogu? out of the fact that they wanted to continue their species, which they would have had to have done prior to episode 1 because of his age.
So let's see. She died in 26 before years before Battle of Yavin. This I didn't know. Yaddle's nickname in the Jedi Order was the One Below. So I don't know what that refers to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we know how Grogu came about.
Yes.
So let's see here. So she died in 26. Let's see. Yaddle's final mission took place in 26 BBY. Her and Kenobi and Anakin. Oh, actually, I remember this in one of the books. Okay. She used the Force to absorb a deadly chemical weapon unleashed by Granta Omega. I believe that was in the Padawan series, the young adult books, where it showed young Anakin being trained by Obi-Wan. I think that's where her death was done in those books. So, and then Shakti succeeded her in the Jedi Council.
Okay.
So yeah. So Yaddle died in 26 BBY. So the question is, what was Ahsoka's birthday? Ahsoka's age, Star Wars. Let's see. So she was born in 32 BBY. Or, I mean, 36 BBY. So she was only 10 years old when Yaddle died. So.
Okay. So she would have been, and how old was she when Anakin started training her? So.
17. When Clone Wars ended. Yeah. I think she was 17 when Anakin took her.
Okay.
So yeah. So, so there you have it. Yeah, because a lot of time passes between episode 1 and 2 of Star Wars.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, there's more than 10 years, I think, right? So.
Anakin is 9 in
episode
1.
He said, I think he said something. It's been like 10 years since he'd seen.
It's something like that.
So.
Sounds right. So
he would have been 19, and then she would have been, because Ahsoka's only a few years younger. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Too many dates in my head for Star Wars. I can't keep it all track. What's Legends? What's canon? I don't know anymore.
Yeah, it's tough on that, but yeah. So we've got, like I said, I was talking about Diana Lee Inosanto. She's the one that played the magistrate, and she's born at, since we're good in age, she was born in '66 in Los Angeles, but her father was martial arts legend Dan Inosanto. So she was named, the Lee comes from, of course, Bruce Lee. She's the goddaughter. She was his goddaughter. She did train probably, she was only about 4 or 5 at that, but she's besides she's done a little bit of acting, she's done a lot of stunt work, including in Alita Battle Angel. She was the martial arts trainer.
Oh, very cool.
And she's done a bunch of TV shows like that. She's done a little bit of acting. Starting in the 80s, she popped up in Moonlighting a little bit. She was in show Barbed Wire. Little things here. Nobody would really recognize her. I thought she looked familiar, but I don't think it's from anything I've seen her. And she just kind of has that look. But then, as we're going through this, we'll talk more about the episode here. But one thing, I watched it again this morning, and at the end of the episode, we don't see her die, so we don't know if she is actually gone. So,
but what was revealed at the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. Everyone's favorite non-live action ever seen villain, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yes.
So we don't know yet. Now there's some vagary going on as far as the timeline. Filoni won't commit to where exactly we are in the timeline as far as Thrawn's disappearance. Is that correct?
That's correct. What he was, I guess, through Twitter and a couple of different, and he was cited through a couple of different places. What he said was that he said it's possible that this takes place prior to Ahsoka and Sabine heading off to try to find Ezra and Grand Admiral Thrawn. He kind of alluded to a lot of that, and it would kind of give sense to that, like, okay, the reason we haven't seen Sabine during the Mandalorian, like we kind of thought we would, is because she's still over on Lothal,
right?
Which is where she's been through the entire of the original trilogy, and that's where her and Ahsoka meet up to decide to go to find Ezra, which is tied into Thrawn. Which I believe this is why she asked about Thrawn. Now she said to the magistrate Morgan Elsbeth said, where is your master? So she referred to Thrawn as her master. So there's definitely been a
I found
lot
that interesting.
Well, there's been a couple of things popping up. Like, is she one of the sisters? Could she have been an inquisitor? So there's a lot of speculation on even though they said that she was tied into the naval shipyards, but obviously, Thrawn, I think, was over the shipyard, so I think that's where it falls into. And she may have been more than just like helping to design. Her plundering worlds and resources could have been tied into her being one of the sisters or an inquisitor type.
And I'm not quite sure about that comment though, about like they haven't started looking yet, because the ending of Rebels is long before Mandalorian.
Well,
and
Filoni says that it's
point.
But Filoni says it really isn't, because he really didn't at the end of Rebels. And I was going to try to rewatch it and I forgot all about it, but so we started talking about it or something. But it sounds like when they're going through, I think it was Sabine telling what happened to everybody, correct?
Let's see, Star Wars Rebels. Let's see what it says. The time,
because supposedly that they never really said exactly when that happened. It was just after the fall of the Empire, but it doesn't give an exact time frame. So that's where
14 years. Okay, so Star Wars Rebels. What is the time frame? Where's the timeline? I hate having to look this up all the time. Why can't we ever have two consecutive things in order for the timeline for Star Wars? It always jumps back and forth constantly. Everything has to go back to the timeline. Conception, production. Come on, just show me the freaking timeline. You know what? Star Wars timeline. I'll do that. But anyways, so speculation is, I'm guessing they're revealing this because we are going to see Grand Admiral Thrawn at some point.
I would think so. I don't know if we're going to see it this season. If it's just going to be that's what they're setting up for the next season, or if we do, I think it'll be the cliffhanger for the end of the season.
Let's see. So the end of Rebels takes place before New Hope.
Right. Well, that where Rebels ended, but then they talked about what happened after Jedi. Remember they talked about here's where they went afterwards.
Does it? Oh, I don't remember that.
It was kind of a postscript to the whole series of at the end of after the last Death Star was destroyed.
Oh yeah. Okay, so it was Star Wars Rebels, probably the epilogue. It was Star Wars Rebels finale epilogue. Let's try that. See if that tells us. Oh, that's right. Okay. See, I've been watching Rebels again, but I haven't gotten to the last one yet.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a great, knowing they were going to end the series. Filoni had a great way of introducing this stuff into there where he could continue on the heart of the story. He didn't have to give a definitive end to Ezra, a definitive end to Thrawn at that point. Because we know they Thrawn and Ezra disappear prior to the Battle of Yavin, so this explains why Thrawn was not seen during any of the original trilogy in that. But it also, I think, allows them to set up dipping way back into the original sequel books that came out in 1990. The trilogy that everybody had hoped would get made into the actual films, which was a continuation of the story, and that's where we got Thrawn introduced at.
Right. Here's the exact quote from Filoni here. He's talking about it's not necessarily chronological. I think that the thing that people will most not understand is that they want to go in a linear fashion. But as I learned as a kid, nothing in Star Wars really works in linear fashion. You do episodes 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3. So in the vein of that history, when you look at the epilogue of Rebels, you don't really know how much time has passed. So it's possible that the story I'm telling in The Mandalorian actually takes place prior to that. Possible. I'm saying it's possible. So I have a feeling he's pointing this out also just to keeps us guessing.
Right. I think it's a lot of what it is. And if he is going to tie in aspects from and it was the Timothy Zahn novel Heir to the Empire that came out in 1991, where we first learned about Thrawn. See, at that point he had taken command 5 years after the Battle of Endor of the remaining fleet. Now we know right now Grand Moff Gideon has a section of them, and we've been told that when the Mandalorian's coming out that it would tie in eventually to stuff within like Force Awakens, stuff like that, which I think it could or could not, doesn't matter, because they're just telling great stories right now. But if it is, then we could see Thrawn and Ezra returning when through different aspects, and we see Thrawn having more of a fleet, and that could be also where they start switching over to the New Order,
right? And so
our First Order.
So regarding this, to wrap up the episode, because we still got to talk about Filoni and Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yep.
So a couple highlights. So where are things moving from here? So Ahsoka can't train Grogu. There's too much attachment between Grogu and the Mandalorian.
She senses his fear.
Yes. Yep. And as we know, Ahsoka knows that what happened because of Anakin's attachment, where his path went to. So that's causing her to fear training Grogu. So now the Mandalorian has to go on another side quest to find the Seeing Stone. Put baby Grogu on the stone.
But Grogu has to summon the Force to reach out to another Jedi to hopefully bring them in there. Right. And are they going to reach out to who are they going to reach out to? Are they going to reach out to Ezra? Are they going to reach out to Luke? The three Jedis we know around this time now are Ahsoka, Luke, and then Ezra supposedly is somewhere. We just don't know where.
Right.
So it's a matter of, Ezra. And of course, Ahsoka did in this episode say, that there are others,
right?
Just not as many.
So here's what we know is happening.
Yes.
At this point in time. The Jedi Academy is founded by Luke in 11 ABY, which is 11 years after the Battle of Yavin. Mm-hmm. So when you do the math, where are we in?
It's about another 6 years to go from Mandalorian.
Well, after the Battle of Yavin. So
Battle of Yavin. Okay, so we are.
So what is that? We're around that time frame.
Yeah, we're probably within a couple of years. Because at this point, I would say that Luke is training. Yeah.
But Star Wars.
Jedi was 3 years after New Hope.
Empire. No, it was after Empire. No, Empire was 3 years after A New Hope, and then.
Well, I know release. I was thinking, and time wise, I thought it was only about 3 years that passed.
You try and find the actual ABYs and. Mm-hmm. It's getting harder and harder to find these things. There's so many timelines published now. I just need here we go. The canon timeline. Yeah. So Star Wars episode 4. Where is it? Come on. God, this thing is so huge. There we go.
I know it's becoming more and more elaborate.
Zoom in.
Oh, I don't want YouTube.
What? Okay, New Republic, Star Wars. Why don't they put the years here? I need the years. Yeah. Rebellion 0 to 5 after. So Return of the Jedi is 5. It looks like 4 years. Here we go. I see how they have this labeled. Okay, so Return of the Jedi is 4 years later. Then we have The Mandalorian. Aren't we season 2, 6 years later? Well,
I think we're still only about 5 years. I don't think time wise, I don't think we've had much time between the end of the first season and second season.
So we are somewhere between 9 to 10 years after Battle of Yavin.
Okay.
Roughly. So that means Luke is about a year away, if we're accurate, about a year away from starting the academy. And who knows, they might even change the year he starts academy,
Right.
But according to this, he started it in 11 years ABY. So that's what this says. So we'll see.
But and I think that right now, from what we saw in Rise of Skywalker, this is where Luke was training Leia, and this was prior to her having. Well, she may have already had given birth to Ben, because they didn't set up the time frame of that; they just showed them training.
Yeah. So, anyways, Grogu's going to go on the Seeing Stone, reach out in the Force. Our possibilities: we could get Ezra Bridger returning to train him. We could get Luke Skywalker, which my vote would be Sebastian.
And before Scott told me that yesterday, I was seeing all kinds of stuff pop up with people taking Sebastian Stan's picture and making him look like what he could look like for Luke Skywalker in this iteration, which would be great.
Yeah, and he has a relationship with Disney as far as he's done Winter Soldier and stuff. So he also did Once Upon a Time for that series. So he has a long history with Disney. So I could foresee him coming back as Luke in this time period. And I think the fans would totally accept it if that happened. So we'll see.
I think so. I think that, there's been, it seems like there was this uproar, and I don't always believe it was truly the fans, but that only if it wasn't the original actors, they don't want anybody. But, I think we're at this point now that we want to tell good stories, continue on with it. And you tell these stories with someone that can fit the mold.
Well, also the worry when you do that is you're going to ruin the franchise. Well, thanks to episodes, thanks to the prequel or sequels, I don't think people fear that. So I think people would be very open to it. Plus, people have already fans have accepted him in the Disney family through the Winter Soldier role. So I think people would trust him in an action role, portraying Luke. I think they would accept it.
Right.
So here's the thing. Now, taking this potential path, you tie that into the rumors that we heard earlier in the season about problems with Pedro Pascal and how they may evolve the series to follow a new character. Well, maybe this is going to turn into the Grogu saga, and whoever comes to pick him up, we follow Grogu as he goes on his path to be trained.
That's possible. I find it interesting about all the stuff we saw before the series came out about Pedro Pascal. It doesn't fit into everything he's doing. Pedro Pascal has been a big cheerleader for this whole season when you follow him online.
I agree.
And everything I think a lot of that stuff was just. I
think that was hype.
I think it was hype, yeah. Because since then started, they've not said a word about any of that.
Yeah.
And he's just he's been a champion. Every episode he's posted stuff. He's promoting it. Stuff like that. There's nothing about if someone that wasn't. Usually when we see an actor when they don't want to, they're like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. If they're not going to see my face, and they're in protest, they usually don't do anything. They just walk away, or they have a lot of negative. So it's
and another possibility too is we know there's a potential spin-off show with Ahsoka. Maybe Ahsoka is the one who answers the call. Just because she said no this time doesn't mean she won't. By going through the Seeing Stone, maybe she will get a different feel.
Yeah, and
maybe she'll come pick up Grogu and go off on her adventure because supposedly she's getting a spin-off show. So who knows?
Well, and that's something it's going to be to see, because I have a feeling we are going to see a spin-off show with Ahsoka.
Because we definitely have to break up Grogu and the Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian can't train him.
Right. And that's if they choose to go the Force aspect, or does the Mandalorian start training him in the ways of Mandalore and bounty hunting and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll have to get Spat to make a little Mandalorian helmet for Grogu.
And with his ear sticking out,
Yeah, that'd be a fun one to draw. Yeah, Grogu and his little Mando, give him a little jetpack and little gauntlets to shoot things.
Pouch with chicken nuggies.
Well, or eggs.
Yeah,
he likes eggs. We know.
Oh yeah. So, anyway, so I'm really hoping we get that, because and Filoni, I think, is going to be, if everything goes right, I can see Filoni and Favreau overseeing the Ahsoka movie or show or whatever.
Yeah, because with this, we got Filoni. God, I can't believe we only have 10 minutes left. Filoni.
We may go over, guys.
Yeah. Filoni. Here's the thing about Filoni, as we called the Filoni verse at the beginning. Mm-hmm. if you really look at it, he has created more Star Wars than anyone. When you take the total runtime of what George Lucas did, he did 6 movies.
Yeah.
If you want to count the holiday special,
which actually I don't think he had anything to do with that as much.
Right.
That was just 20th Century Fox.
But even if you count those and the Ewok adventure movies, and let's even throw in the Ewok cartoon, Filoni has created far more when you factor in Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, and all 3 of those are massive hits with the fans. The things he didn't touch, like Resistance, was a failure.
Although he did do a voice in that.
He did a what?
A voice.
Yeah, but that wasn't his production. I don't think he was heading it up.
No, I believe he was see, when they started doing that, he was already at work on Mandalorian and that. So,
and I think what we're getting confirmation of through this, because the Mandalorian really is Filoni bringing back all of his creations in the Star Wars universe and carrying the story forward. I think we really are seeing the passing of the torch to Filoni as the head of Star Wars. Obviously that's not fact. It hasn't occurred. Kathleen Kennedy is still there, but his fingerprints are all over the Mandalorian and the direction things are going.
Well, yeah, and you saw it in this last episode here. It just totally screamed everything that he'd worked on, that he put in place when he got hired. I mean, if you, I was looking back over the Wikipedia for his career. He was a character and storyboard artist. He got to start in the industry with King of the Hill. He worked on Mission Hill, The Oblongs, Timo Supremo, Impossible, Lilo and Stitch, Dave the Barbarian. So he's got a lot of animation background, and at the same time, he's a huge Star Wars fan. In fact, it mentions here about the fact that his favorite Star Wars character is Plo Koon. And he dressed up as the Jedi Master for the opening of The Revenge of the Sith. And of course, then he said he was dismayed by the character's fate in the film. But I guess, I remember seeing this when we watched the episode of the behind the scenes with the Mandalorian in his office and that stuff. He's got all kinds of Plo Koon stuff and that. So he definitely is a fan there. And we know from that episode that what was he doing, prior to getting the call from Lucas, making Jedi robes, because he's that kind of fan.
Right.
And he gets the call from George Lucas, thinks it's a gag. And then next thing you know, he's talking to George, and George wants him to not just be a part of the Clone Wars, but basically to helm the Clone Wars.
And watching the Disney Gallery series, I think, is really the turning point for me. I've always enjoyed everything Filoni has done, and I've seen interviews with him, but when you watch the Disney Gallery, he gets it. He knows the heart of Star Wars. He knows what George Lucas's intentions are thoroughly, but he also understands the fans thoroughly. And it's that convergence of all these things together is why I think he consistently makes home runs for Star Wars.
Yes. And to the point of it's been revealed that George Lucas was on the set when they filmed this episode of with Ahsoka and that. So he was there. I think it was, to me, that almost is like George giving the final blessing of, yes, you are, I've handed over the mantle of you being the master.
Right. And then also in looking at the future of Star Wars, so we've had these rumors of a Rian Johnson trilogy. We've had rumors of the Game of Thrones trilogy for Star Wars, but none of those have been canceled by my understanding, but they sure have gone silent on them. And Disney has even gone further to say, we are putting our focus on the Disney Plus content instead of movies. So while they didn't cancel those things, they definitely didn't endorse them.
Right. And there's been so many different things saying that Johnson one was definitely gone.
But I still read, even in October, there was a story how it's quietly being worked on. So it could be, but all the indicators from Disney is that they're throwing all their money into Disney Plus content, not into movies. Well,
and that's the thing. I think it's going to be more of the TV show context. They're going to have movies. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens. But I think with the Rian Johnson stuff, we've seen so many different things that say basically they just kind of quietly stopped talking about it. They just pushed it aside. And the thing is, they wanted to. I think what it boils down to is they don't want to admit the mistake of allowing Johnson to helm episode 8. So by not talking about it, not continue on, because his announcement of, he's going to do episode 8 and then he's going to do his own trilogy.
Right.
It was
and here's what you can't deny: whether you liked it or hated it, that's indifferent. Yeah. What matters is where Star Wars makes their money is merchandising, not from movies. That's where they make their money. And after episode 8, the Star Wars merchandise market died.
Yeah.
It's Christmas time. You go out. The Ghostbuster section, which only has 4 figures, has a bigger section than the Star Wars section. That's insane. It was decimated after episode 8. And that is a reality. The numbers plummeted for Star Wars. Their ability to license got hurt drastically after episode 8. Now, Mandalorian is reviving that. The toys that people are buying are Mandalorian toys. People want Baby Yoda. They want the Mandalorian. The Black Series is reviving. That what's selling for Black Series? It's all the only new stuff selling for Black Series is Mandalorian product.
Yep. Or
all the old classic figures. Nothing. The sequel characters don't sell.
Yep. And I see tons. I always see Poe. I always see what's Poe's girlfriend's in Rise of Skywalker. I see tons of her Black Series figure. I've seen a bunch of other side characters, stuff like that from the last couple of movies. Just always on the shelves. They never sell. Can't find the Mandalorian stuff. You have to hit the pre-orders right when they hit, because they're gone.
And regardless, even if you absolutely love episode 8, the reality is movies are a business, and Disney's going to see which toys people are buying and which ones they're not, and they're going to make their decisions based on it. The cartoons, both of Filoni's series were absolute home runs. Nobody cared about Resistance. I mean, obviously some people individually did, but as far as ratings go, it was nowhere near what Clone Wars did.
But even when I saw people that wanted to praise it, they praised it, but at the same time they admitted that it wasn't good. It was just the idea of what they hoped things could be. And I'm like, that's not what makes it good then. You can't, this, but of course the idea of hope they wanted, these are people that aren't truly Star Wars fans. They were just looking to change everything, which is, I think, what hurt the sequels. So. Yeah,
which is also why I really think they're going to retcon the series. Money talks, and the reality is, what did they buy? They bought Star Wars for like $7 billion from George Lucas or something. It was some
$4 billion.
I think it was $4 billion cash and $3 billion in stock options or something.
I can see that, yeah.
But yeah, so even $4 billion, it's huge. Disney wants to make that money back, and they will take the franchise where the money is. Filoni is proving he is a winning bet.
Yep.
So if that's the case, they're going to keep betting on Filoni because they have $4 billion or $7 billion to make up. Yeah. So,
well, I think what we have coming forward, there's been an announcement of a Bad Batch animated series coming next year.
Also Filoni.
That's Filoni. We've got the Rogue One prequel series. Rogue One really is the only that and Solo are the only 2 Disney, but really Rogue One is the only one that on its own from concept to finished product held up to what it should hold up to.
And that was by pure chance. That was a Kathleen Kennedy era movie. She just lucked out that here's her problem. She doesn't choose people based on who's good for the job. She chose people who she liked as individuals and gave them Star Wars jobs.
And that was Tony Gilroy. He was
we lucked out with Rogue One. He did a phenomenal job. He had 0 steering from Kathleen Kennedy. Solo came around. Once again, she hired people based on who she liked. 0 steering. It turned out it was a disaster, they discovered, and had to scrap it, like half of it.
Because they found out during they did the initial screening for The Last Jedi, and they're like, "Oh my God, what is this?"
Right.
It didn't fit anything they thought it would fit because they didn't give any. They just let him do what he wanted. So immediately they go and check on Solo, and what they find out is, they're not even following Kasdan's script.
Right.
They're just kind of improvising the whole thing, and they didn't care about having it fit in. And you had the 2 guys that did the Lego movie.
Right.
So they went from animation to live action, and even then, it's like, they were doing almost a parody because they weren't Star Wars fans. They were admitted not Star Wars fans.
Yeah, and they were making a mockery of the entire thing, and it was awful. So that was a Kathleen Kennedy failure. And then you got the sequels as a whole. And now, me personally, I actually was a huge fan of episode 7. I really did enjoy episode 7 thoroughly.
I enjoyed it because I thought it was a great reboot, restart.
It was a soft reboot.
Yeah.
Yep, it was a way of moving the franchise forward, steering a different direction. But after hearing the behind the scenes on it, when Lucas sold this to Disney, he had a storyline for the final trilogy.
Yeah.
And they led him to believe that's what they were going to make. And when he sat down, and they did not tell him at all that they scrapped his idea. And that was Kathleen Kennedy's doing. She said, enough of this. You know, Star Wars has a 40-year-old fan base. When they're too old, we need to aim it towards a younger, more progressive audience. And she completely turned her back on the fans that made it what it was. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole goal.
I think the loss on her was she really alluded a lot that there was no female fans. And as you and I know, there are millions of female fans from the original trilogy that are still around today that interested their kids.
Janice, she's heading off to a meeting. May the force be with you too.
And Janice is one of them. Janice is a longtime fan. And I think that the thought that they had to try to reimagine it because women weren't watching it was a complete false. And
Star Wars had a huge female fan base.
Yes. And there was a lot going on within it. We saw, from the original trilogy, yes, Leia was primarily the main female in that. But when you go back to the prequels, they introduced a lot of other characters, and those characters helped to build upon what it was without changing what it was.
And there's also a difference between creating diverse characters who are strong original characters and creating characters just for the sake of creating characters.
Yeah.
Ahsoka is a perfect example. Filoni made a strong female character with Ahsoka.
Yes.
She's an amazing character. She's a fan favorite without ever being in live action. She became a huge presence in the Star Wars universe, but she wasn't created as a token piece. She was created as a strong individual character in her own right. And the fans craved to see more and more of her. And we got her in this live action finally. Hopefully it's true we're going to get a spinoff because I absolutely love stories with Ahsoka.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to it.
She was my favorite part of the Clone Wars.
Yep.
When they introduced her into Rebels, it was such a great surprise. I didn't expect it. And it got a chance to continue her story.
Yep.
And then with the final season of Clone Wars, we got to see what led her into Rebels. So it kind of tied more of that together. And now seeing her live action with this, it's just a continuation of some great storytelling. That if it's a great character, and it didn't matter whether it was male or female, it just happened to be she's female.
Yep.
And she's great on that.
So here's where I think Disney does have an opportunity to fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
The expanded universe is a proven success with the hardcore fans. People love that storyline. Is it perfect? No. But the beauty of doing this, if they retcon the whole thing, is they can redo it and do it better with someone like Filoni. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the expanded universe wasn't originally made with the intention of making it canon or as movies or anything. But with Filoni, he loves to dig into the expanded universe and bring it to life through his canon projects.
Yes.
So we do have through season 2 of Rebels, I believe it is, we see Ahsoka access what's called the Veil of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
She is able to alter time through the veil. Actually, season 2 was when she fought Anakin. So season 4, I think, was when we saw the veil, where she goes back to season 2 and alters that thing. We also learned the Emperor has been using these special Force mirrors to access the veil, and that's how he was able to outwit the Jedi all the time, was through the veil of the Force, where it's like this intersecting points between time and space through the Force itself.
Mm-hmm.
We also learn in Star Wars Episode 9, when Rey finds that room, that secret room off of the throne room that was the final battle in Return of the Jedi, Rey enters there. There's all these broken mirrors. Those broken mirrors are those Veil of the Force mirrors, it looks like.
Right.
And that's where the Emperor was accessing the veil. One of the mirrors was still intact. That's the mirror Rey saw the dark side vision of herself in it. Mm-hmm. So I don't think J.J. Abrams has a deep enough knowledge of all the nuances of Star Wars history to put something like that into Episode 9. I don't think that was an accident. And I think Filoni I think that was a potential out. If they get someone with the acting power of what is his name? Sebastian Stan, right?
Yep.
Winter Soldier. If they get someone like him on board with his age, his acting abilities, if they could bring him on as like a young Luke to carry the franchise forward, they can have Ahsoka access the veil and make sure all you have to do is, since we know there's a mirror on the Death Star at the end of Return of the Jedi, if Ahsoka can access it and make sure the Emperor truly died in that scene, that by itself fixes everything. The Emperor never has a grandchild. Rey is never born. Snoke is never made. The First Order is never started. That entire timeline completely gets wiped, and they can now be free to create whatever future they want for the franchise using someone like Sebastian Stan, and combined with Rosario Dawson. We could have the adventures, the live action adventures we wanted of Anakin and Ahsoka, we can see as Luke and Ahsoka,
And we know he loves to dip in so much to the expanded universe. We could eventually see what people wanted to see from that, like a Mara Jade. They're bringing in.
We could get Mara Jade, which was a dark Jedi, Hand of the Emperor. She ends up marrying Luke in the expanded universe. We can get that again. We can get Ahsoka, who is a strong female character. We can have Luke give her the power of heading up the Jedi Academy or giving her missions, and then we see her as a main character in a series with a lot of Jedi power and influence, which would be awesome. So there's so much potential if they do this, where Filoni can be the chosen one and bring balance to the Star Wars franchise.
Right.
So it's been a long time since I've had this much hope in the Star Wars future.
Yeah,
so.
This is and we talked about this last year with the first season of Mandalorian. It kind of really brought back for both of us our true love of Star Wars. Rise of Skywalker we both enjoyed. They did the best they could to retcon and fix from episode 8 to 9 to end that run. But what we're seeing within the Filoni-verse, I mean, he really is taking full helm of this in a way that I hope he gets to continue that. And realistically, he needs to be the one to take over overseeing all this.
The beauty of this series, the Mandalorian series, is I think this is also becoming the proving ground for who their future directors will be. We have Bryce Dallas Howard handling multiple episodes. We have Ron Howard advocating to bring Solo 2 to the theaters, which I suspect will be Bryce Dallas Howard's transition into a live action movie, and she'll work together with Ron Howard, and then moving forward she'll go solo. That's my solo. Get it? She'll go solo on Solo moving forward. But we have Tiki Watiti or whatever.
Tiki Watiti, he's been rumored to be offered an actual movie for. Right, he directed the final episode of Mandalorian last year.
So having a series like The Mandalorian is giving them the opportunity to test run these directors now, make sure they truly they learn the Star Wars method before they get a movie.
And I think that's what exactly we're seeing, because every single one has done well. Bryce she's done 2 episodes now for Mandalorian, and both were just phenomenal. She brings a beautiful vision. You can see she really, and of course she comes from a very rarefied air there because of who her father is, but also the fact that she grew up around George Lucas. So she's been in and around the Star Wars universe her entire life.
Yep.
And everything else to do with Lucasfilm. So, Ron directed, Willow. He's been a part of knowing George for a very long time. They go way back to American Graffiti. Him and George have been friends since the early 70s. So having that lineage for Bryce Dallas Howard is bringing a lot to what she can do. And I personally think I enjoy her as an actress, but I think she's really stepped into becoming a phenomenal director. And from what I've seen just in the Mandalorian episodes, I think she could helm her own movie, if not trilogy.
I agree. I think they're doing everything right. I foresee if Disney truly is going to focus on Disney Plus content, I can really foresee them doing something where we get these multiple series, but then the movies would be like a Marvel Avengers style event where the storylines converge for a grand battle, a grand event where it can be a single standalone movie or a full trilogy, but it won't have they don't have to spend time on all the setup. The Disney Plus series can do the setup, and then the movie can just be a fun, action-packed summer blockbuster movie where everyone wants to see it on the big screen.
Yep.
I can foresee some kind of crossover like that, tying the two together.
Oh, definitely. I think it's, and if we don't see this ever happen, then Kathleen Kennedy needs to go away.
Yes,
but they're really running that way.
The sad thing about Kennedy is the fans were absolutely thrilled when she got the job because she was at George Lucas's side from the beginning. She worked with him on episode 4, the first Star Wars movie.
Well, she was back with him in the 80s. She worked
in the 70s. She was with him from the very start. And so fans felt like, okay, she gets it. She knows what this is and moving forward. But Bob Iger admitted they backstabbed Lucas and he felt bad. Lucas, when he saw what they made with episode 7, was just, he felt like they stabbed him in the back.
Yeah. Cause he I remember when this was going down and he's handing it to Disney, people were like, oh, Disney's going to screw him. Well, they did in a low way. But at the same time, he was like, Lucas was like, yeah, they're going to be able to continue on, what I can't and don't want to at this time at his age. I want to do some other stuff, but he basically handed them everything, gave them what they needed, and they took it and just dropped it in the trash.
Yep.
And then I think Filoni came behind him and took it up to keep it forever. Because he's truly digging back in to go back to what, George's original vision was for Star Wars. So,
which is funny because, like, once again, the power of Filoni's stories and stuff was the Clone Wars was it wasn't meant to be what it became as far as size and scope, I don't think. And they have 2 seasons or 2 that weren't supposed to happen. But the fan base was so strong for it. They brought back the that partial season as the last season, and then they came out with another season.
Yeah. Well, they had the lost episodes that was supposed to be the last season. Yeah. Yep. And that was supposed to be the end of it. But then they gave him the chance to do one final episode, and really the final season was when he set up the Bad Batch, which is a whole new series they're going to continue, which is going to be really cool. And then it got him a chance to do what he really wanted to do, which was he goes like, I got to finish Ahsoka's story arc in the Clone Wars. Yes, we know what she did in Rebels, but there's explains a whole lot. Right. And I think a lot of that was actually more not to explain Rebels, was to explain now going forward and him bringing that character around. And I think it also showcased to Disney that yes, you don't need to create a new female character. You have a female character that the fans already love that's got great story, and you can continue on and then build from there, creating new characters around that.
And now tying back to the idea of them bringing the expanded universe into existence again and making that canon. Like I said, it won't be exact, but Filoni knows how to dig into that and bring it to life. And so if you go back to the original Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, that takes place roughly in this time frame where Thrawn is bringing the Empire together and stuff. So everything is lining up to fit. And, then you get the old video games where we got the Dark Troopers. It looks like that's coming into play now. And you had the Clone Emperor and all these different things and all these elements of the expanded universe. It can happen. Everything's in the right spot right now. So we'll see.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see. So, hey, this has been a great episode. I'm sure we could talk for another 2 hours just because we just loved it so much. But join us again next week with Grogu. He's singing out in the background there. Grogu. I think. And that.
Goku is...
I said Grogu and it's supposed to be Grogu. Yeah, Grogu. And that, and of course, it doesn't fit what they were talking about with the Y names between Yaddle and Yoda, but that's just fine. He needs his own unique identity. So join us again next week. We'll definitely be talking some more Mandalorian. Got a new episode this week, and we'll touch on a few other fun stuff. And of course, we did say goodbye to Dave Prowse. So sail on, Dave Prowse. We'll see you somewhere down the road. Until then, guys, see ya.